Wait. Before we start, just want to make sure we're clear here. While this podcast talks about sobriety, mental health, and addiction, it is not meant to replace professional medical advice. Welcome to Sisters in Sobriety.
I'm Kathleen.
And I'm Sonia.
And we're ex-sisters-in-law, brought together in marriage and bonded through our sobriety journey.
Join us as we talk sobriety, addiction, and everything in between. You're in for quite a ride. And our Substack is buzzing with amazing content, from creative mocktail recipes to insightful courses and reflective exercises. There is something for everyone. Don't miss out. It's a great way to add some extra joy and depth to your journey. Check it out. Welcome to Sisters in Sobriety. Today, we are honored to be joined by Alejandra Brady, the founder of Casa Shui Life. And she has over 2 decades of experience in interior design. And in 2017, she pivoted her career to integrate Feng Shui, and she creates spaces that are beautiful and energetically aligned. Her best-selling, award-winning memoir, I Just Can't Make This Shit Up, Overcoming Fear and Accepting My Spiritual Gifts, and her Feng Shui Oracle deck, What Should I Feng Shui Today? Describe how energy and design can transform lives. Welcome, Alejandra.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited to have you here. You are the first Feng Shui expert I've ever spoken to. So can you just talk a little bit about if there was like a defining time or moment that kind of hinted to you that this was your next path?
Oh, there was 100%. So when I turned 50 in 2017, right? Yeah, 2017, I turned 50. I just come off of 2 surgeries that were life-changing for me. I had a full hysterectomy at 47, and the hysterectomy went wrong on the bladder side of it. So I had to learn to catheterize myself for 6 months and have a second bladder surgery then to fix it. And then about 3 months after that second surgery, I went in for lower lumbar spinal fusion. So by the end of my 47th, 48th year, I was still trying to come back. So fast forward to 50, I was finally getting my groove back, as they say, and feeling good and having a good workout schedule. And I started dropping things, like things just kept falling out of my right hand. And I started getting headaches. I have never been a person who gets headaches. There were migraines too. And all of this stuff was happening. So I went back to my surgeon because I had a very good relationship with my spinal surgeon. And I just said, what's going on? They did an MRI. And I remember him sitting me down in his office and he's like, I'm not telling you have to go to the hospital right now. I'm saying you got to go home. You got to get your shit together. And you got to talk to your husband, because he knew my husband. And he goes, and we got to go in and do a cervical fusion. So I have a plate in my neck with 6 screws. And what was happening was everything was compressing in my spine. And I fell, if I tripped, if anything small happened, I could end up paralyzed, were his words. And, so I went home in the very woe is me. This was in end of September, after I just turned 50 on September 14th. And he said, like, mid-October, we got to go in and do the surgery. And I'm like, I don't believe this. Like, poor me, right? Of course. And in that time frame, I was still a full-fledged interior designer working with my clients. And I had a client who was really way more into energy than me. And we were shopping one day, and I couldn't go into this room where we were looking at. And it was an antiques place, because I love to mix old and new together to make a space feel curated, not just to have it look like we shopped out of a catalog. And I couldn't walk into this room. And she goes, tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what you're feeling right now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, male or female energy? I'm like, oh my God, what are you talking about? And she said, you're feeling energy. And then she said, I'm actually having a Feng Shui master come to my home and do a consultation. Do you want one? And I was like, what is Feng Shui? And she said, just trust me. Do you want one? And something inside me just said yes. And so this woman came, and we decided to go to each other's consultations so we could help each other take notes and, help each other implement what we were going to need to do in our home. We had no idea that this woman was my dear friend now and teacher and mentor, Karen Rock Carter. Her book is in 9 languages throughout the world. No clue. But when they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appeared, right? So she walked into my house Within 10 minutes of being in my house, she looked at me and she goes, you're going to be doing this for a living. And this was right after all the information from the doctor. And I remember looking at my watch and going, TikTok woman, you're expensive. This is an expensive consultation. Just tell me what I need to do to get ready for the surgery. That is literally all I have the bandwidth for. And during a full consultation, which I do as well, whether it's remote or on site, we walked the entire house. So she gave me notes on everything. But honestly, all I had the bandwidth to do was to change what she suggested in our master bedroom before the surgery. So the surgery comes and goes. I'm in a neck brace for 8 weeks. So I can do nothing except lay in our room. And I did everything she suggested. The energy was so different in our home after just 1 month of implementing what she said, just in the primary bedroom, that my husband looked at me and goes, what do you want to do next? Because originally he sat there literally, for those of us that can see this, with his arms crossed as she was walking around. Like you could feel his closed off energy to the consultation. And a month later, yeah, what do you want to do? So I was my own guinea pig. As I recovered, I had taken time off from my business. I'd let everybody know, until I'm well enough to come back, I'm not. And so I implemented everything she said around the house. It took about 6 months to do it all because she said, do it slowly. You don't want to shift so much energy at once. You want to do something very intentionally, then take a beat. So I did everything. And 6 months later, I reached back out to her and I'm like, hey, remember me when you were in Tampa? Like, she's all over the world. So I'm like, I did everything. And I think you're right. I think I need to do this.
Yeah.
Will you take me on as a student? And if you don't do that, do you know somebody, who will? And she took me on as a student. And so I did not go back to my design business until I finished my full-fledged certification with her, which took a while. It's a very in-depth certification. And I personally feel, whether you're working with me or whoever you're working with, if you choose to move forward to work with a consultant, make sure they're certified, because it is working with your energy. It is a very intimate experience. It's working in your space. And you don't want somebody who's just read a book to come in and mess around with your environment, right? So definitely make sure they're certified if this resonates with you. And that's how it started, and then that led to my being interested in more spiritual things. It started the rabbit hole. I started implementing it. The space started shifting in my home. Then I decided, I'm curious about meditation. During meditation, I got told, I asked the question. I said, what is my purpose now? Where am I? I am 50. I am recovering from this crazy surgery. Our son graduated from college. He's grown and flown. We're empty nesters for real. What am I supposed to be doing? I want to do something meaningful with this next stage of my life. And I got told I was going to write a book. Literally, I got an answer. I'm very clairaudient, so I get messages in my right ear. And I started laughing. I said, no, thanks. I don't want to write a book. I have no interest in that. What else? And I kept asking every day for 5 days, and I got told I was going to write a book. And I'm like, all right, here we go. So that's how the book came to be. So that's just the way my life is now. But the catalyst to everything was applying Feng Shui to my home and making the home support us.
So when you're having that initial consultation in your home, were you open to it? And also, or were you like, did some of the principles of Feng Shui go against your natural interior design principles? Or how did you feel during the consultation?
So something in me said yes to do the consultation, right? And I think that is what I find when people reach out to me to do these consultations is normally if everything is just quote unquote perfect in your life and everything is smooth sailing, I'm not getting a lot of those people reaching out to me. I get the people who feel that something is missing. Like the big three are for love, for health, for wealth. Those are usually what people come to me. And we'll pull out the Bagua map and I'll show you the Bagua in a minute and we'll look at the way that the style of Feng Shui that I'm certified in kind of lays it all out for you. But I knew that something wasn't the way it needed to be and it needed to change. Like something just very innate in me said, I need help and this is beyond having things look pretty. Because, if you've been doing something for a long enough period of time, you should be pretty good at it. I can make a room look beautiful, pretty easily because that is what I've been trained to do for over 2 decades. However, what I strive for now is when somebody walks into my space or any space that I've done and they say, oh my God, it feels so good in here. That's when I know that I did the right thing. And yes, there are a few things that, what should I say, typical interior design, it's not necessarily the same. A lot of people like having a big mirror facing the entryway, like the door, like when you walk in, if there's a wall there or a half wall or something, people have a mirror that's facing out. In Feng Shui, in the style of Feng Shui that I am certified in, which is BTB Feng Shui, it's a more Western approach. That is not ideal because you are welcoming energy through your front door. But if there's a mirror there, it's bouncing right out. And I had that actually at our house. And that's one of the first things she noticed. Also, we slept on the second floor. We had a 2-story house and our dining room was below us. And we were having surgery after surgery. In there, in the middle of all those, my surgeries, my husband I call it the baby fusion, right? Because mine was a bigger fusion than his. But he also had spinal fusion. And he had a shoulder surgery. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, why is one of us having surgery after surgery? And she goes, let's go downstairs and see what you're sleeping below. She goes, do you have guns in the room or do you have knives? I'm like, no, we don't sleep with knives or guns next to us. Like, no. I am from Texas. We own a gun, but it was nowhere near. And it's locked away in a lockbox. And, my dad gave it to me whenever. And below us was our silver chest, directly below where our bed was. And in our silver chest was my mom's, because my mom and dad had passed by that point in time. So a full set of 12 from my mother, a full set of 12 from my grandmother, and my full set of 12. She goes, you're sleeping under knives, 36 of them to be exact. And I was like, what? And she said, you're sleeping under knives. Sometimes when you're sleeping under them or when they're around you can mean surgery in Feng Shui. So I'm like, okay. So we moved them and things changed for the better. At that point, I just moved the silver chest to another part of the dining room where they wouldn't be directly under our bed. So it's things like that, where you catch yourself. It's much more intentional than just designing. It's like, why are you putting this where you're putting it? And what could the implications be from you putting it there? And so you want to make choices that support your health, support your lifestyle, support your journey, whatever that journey may be, versus maybe working against. I'm not somebody that says there's good Feng Shui and bad Feng Shui. I don't like when people come on Instagram and they're like, this is bad Feng Shui. Nothing is good or bad. Stuff just is. It's all in relation to what's going on with you and how it could be affecting you, and just making shifts can help change that in a better, more auspicious direction.
So the knives weren't bad Feng Shui necessarily?
The knives there's nothing wrong with the knife. You need knives, right? It's just where they were could possibly have been affecting us in not as great a way, right? So all we did was move them to another part. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a knife. It's not good or bad. It's just a knife. You need it to cut your food. So that's what I'm saying. It's like things are not necessarily good or bad. It's where you have them placed. We talked a little bit before we got on to start recording. I had a client, we lived in Sedona during the pandemic. Feng Shui kind of opened the door to a second home, and we lived in Sedona and just had a ball and traveled all over the West during the pandemic. And I had a client in Sedona who wanted to call in a new partner. She was divorced. She'd had a boyfriend, and he was now out of the picture as well. And her room, she knew about Feng Shui. She had some foundations. And so her room was set up, with the balance of the nightstands, the balance of the lamps, the king-size bed, inviting, beautiful bedding. We'd made room in her closet, empty space or an empty drawer to welcome in a partner. So it was space for another partner. Everything was working, quote unquote, from your basic 101 Feng Shui. And I'm just looking around going, so what is happening here? Something is going on that's still not allowing a partner to come in. And I go, what's under your bed? I hadn't looked. I'm like, what's going on under your bed? She goes, oh, it's just a bunch of old papers. I'm like, let's pull them out. She goes, oh, it's just old stuff. It's stuff from exes. It's my divorce papers. It's like old love letters. I'm like, there you go. I'm like, how can a new partner come in if what's under you is all the energy and not necessarily great energy anymore because they are exes for a reason of old partners? I'm like, there's already 5 people in this bed with you. So very reluctantly, piece by piece of mail, we went through everything. And I'm like, of course, I'm sure you need to keep your divorce papers. So let's go file them in your office. Let's look through these old letters. If this person hasn't been in your life in 10 years, why are you keeping the letters?
Yeah.
I don't care that you're sentimental. These are not working to your advantage. So little by little, we went through everything. I got her to bring them to the door. And then it took about another 10 minutes to put the garbage bag outside the door. And we both felt this insane hit. And she just looked at me. She goes, "Did you feel it?" I go, "I felt it. Like we felt like we'd been hit in the chest." And she goes, "Okay, so that was the right call." And she walked him out and she put him in the garbage can. And probably about a month and a half later, she reached out to me and said she'd met a man. And I have not talked to her since we moved back. We'll text on Instagram or quick ones. But apparently she is in a very nice relationship and she's very happy. So again, there's nothing wrong with those things, right? It's
No.
just where they were and how that was affecting her. And since we all spend about a third of our lives in bed, our bedroom and what is around us in our bedroom really has a big impact on us.
So I wouldn't say looking for love, but I am not opposed to a perfect partner walking in.
A partner coming in.
Yeah. What are some of the things that we do that we don't realize that may be preventing that from happening? And what are a couple of things we can do?
Sure. And this works for everything. Let's stay focused on the bedroom because it does have an impact on every aspect of our life, right? So the bedroom is really meant for three things. It's meant for like rest, it's meant for relaxation, and it's meant for romance. If you have trouble sleeping, and again, when I do consultations, and Karen did this with me, and this is the way I was trained, you should be having a big part of your conversation at the beginning before the person even walks around your house should be what is working and what isn't, right? Because just because I'm saying this is what you should do in your bedroom, if you have a killer love life and you've got everything and you're sleeping great and all that, ignore me, ignore me. But if you find, yes, I could sleep better. Yes, I feel wired at night. Yes, I would like to call in a partner. Yes, I have anxiety. Then I would say, let's look at your bedroom and see what could be happening there. So for calling in love, you want to create a place of balance. So you don't want a bed that's pushed up against one wall where one partner has to crawl in over another one to get to their side of the bed. And listen, I've done consultations all over the world. I understand sometimes apartments are very small and you need to store things under your bed, because ideally you wouldn't. I would say I'd like to see an empty space under your bed and let that energy circulate around you. But I get it. Sometimes that's not possible. So if you need to store things under your bed, then make them things that are more yin energy versus yang energy. For instance, store extra pillows, blankets, sheets, pajamas, anything that implies more soft energy versus workout clothes, shoes. All those imply go, so it's harder to sleep over workout clothes and shoes, divorce papers, things from exes, so be very mindful of what's being stored. Be very mindful of your bed placement. Ideally, it would be in command, which means you can see the door, but you're not directly in line with the door. In traditional Feng Shui, if your feet are in line with the door, it is called the coffin position. Again, I don't ascribe to good or bad Feng Shui, but if you look at it from a common sense point of view, thousands and thousands of years ago, that's the way they took you out, right? If you died in your sleep, they took you straight out, feet first, through the door of your bedroom. So ideally, you don't want to be directly in line with the door for your feet. We do find, after many years of doing consultations, patterns, right? So I can walk in, and if I see if somebody is in that position, then I start asking questions. Is there somebody that sleeps on this side of the bed who has a lot of foot problems, ankle problems, all the way up maybe to your knee? Because that could be a product of the energy rushing in and smacking, right into your feet, especially if you don't have a footboard. So things you can do in that situation is get a footboard or get a trunk or put some sort of furniture in front of your bed that kind of blocks the chi from hitting directly at your feet. And both partners will sleep better that way too, as well. Always make space. I touched about it earlier, but always make space for a partner, whether they're there or not. Leave that empty drawer with the very specific intention of welcoming in a partner who's going to need it. Leave that empty space in your closet to welcome in a partner. What else is a good one? Single subject artwork. Pay close attention to the artwork throughout your house, but especially in your bedroom. I find that a lot of my single ladies have single subject artwork in their bedroom. I don't like a lot of pictures of anyone in the bedroom, but really I don't want to see artwork of other people or pictures of other people. It should just be of you and your partner. And if you are single and not committed at the moment and want to call in, I wouldn't have a whole bunch of pictures of just you in the bedroom because you're saying, hey, this is what I like, just me. So I would suggest you just take it out. And then as far as I see a lot of people, I always go back to my in-laws, bless their heart. All our parents have passed away now, but my in-laws especially they had 4 kids. My husband's the oldest of 4. So they had those photos, like those little collages that had the ovals with the pictures of the kids, at all different stages. And they had multiple of those above their bed. And, you don't know what you don't know. So before Feng Shui, I was just like, oh, okay, all your kids are in the room. After Feng Shui, I'm like, ew, all your kids are in the room. Think about that. If it's a place for romance, do you want other people watching? Do you want your parents in your room watching? Do you want their eyes on you? Do you want your kids on you? Do you want friends on you watching you? I mean, if you're an exhibitionist and you like it, whatever works for you. But for most people, I suggest for it to be a space where it's just pictures of you and your intimate partner, or just some beautiful artwork in twos, in pairs, to call in that pair. That's a big one. And pay attention to the artwork around your house too, because that's a big one. You can bring in some crystals. Rose quartz is beautiful, and it's a very soft, loving energy. So that's a beautiful one to have in your space. If you are working on a sobriety journey, amethyst is a wonderful stone to have near you in bed as a stone that will help you. It's actually called the sobriety stone. So that is a great crystal to use if you want one in your bedroom, or you can put it under your pillow. You can put it under your mattress if it'll bother you under your pillow, just to help support you, on your journey. So those are all things that I look for. I don't like to see workout equipment in your bedroom. No Peloton in the bedroom. I don't like to see work in the bedroom. Put your laptop away, sleep with your phones off. When people come to me and say they're wired, I'm like, how many things are plugged into either side of your, into the nightstands? So I always encourage people to not get the mattresses that are electric. And they're also, those mattresses are made out of crude oil. So yeah. So I encourage people when it's time to change to get shredded latex mattresses that are organic. Those are all things that can just help your journey, whatever your journey is, and create a more peaceful and healthier, because I'm also talking biophilic here, create a healthier environment for you.
I know we talked a little bit about crystals before we started, and you're a certified crystal healer.
I am, and the reason I did it is I don't lay hands. Like, I don't do crystal grids on people. I don't lay hands. I wanted that information, same as when I became certified in biophilic design, as other tools in my toolbox for when I do interior design and consultations, so that I can help my clients, better select what is important and what can help them in their environment.
So what if somebody out there, I might be like this a little bit, I'm worried about creating clutter, but I would like to bring in some crystals. How do you balance that?
If you saw my house, I have crystals, very intentional. I have one specimen that's 85 pounds, and it just means that there isn't other crap on my chest that it's on.
Yeah.
I use it as decoration. And you don't have to have an 85-pound specimen to do the job. You can have a small crystal, as I mentioned earlier, under your mattress, under your bed, in your pocket. I actually created I was doing a workshop on crystals and Feng Shui, because I did an entire workshop, and I'm actually considering doing a course that then I can offer online. But I was doing a workshop, and I was talking about how I always have crystals in my bra, especially when I go into people's spaces, because I do take it all in. I mean, I felt as much energy as my client that day when we were clearing out all the letters and stuff from the X's. And there's no way around. That's just the way I'm built. So I have to protect myself when I go into spaces, and I rely on crystals to help me do that. So my bra's always packed full of crystals. And I have a little bowl in my bra drawer, and I just reach in there and grab whatever feels like I want to grab it that day. Sometimes I'll look and be like, oh, I'm going to be talking to so, and I know what the issues are, so let me put this one. But most of the time it's just intuition. So it doesn't have to create clutter. They can be small. You can have them in your bra. If you're a guy, you can have them in your pocket. So I created 4 little sets, actually. One is sleep shui, one is car shui, because you can feng shui your car. I'm in my car a lot during the day. So I have a Bagua mat printed out, and underneath my driver's area, the mat on my driver's area of the car, and I have a little crystal kit in my center console. Nobody sees it, but it's there. The bra one, the pocket one, so you can work with them without having them create a cluttered area. So they work just as well if they're huge or if they're small. It's the intention behind them. And then you just need to learn how to clear them and clean them and make sure, because since they're absorbing the energy for you, you do need to maintain them the way you would maintain anything else. You'd want to clean them out, you'd want to clear them and have them, working at full strength for you.
And if somebody is thinking crystals are too expensive, can you grab one off of Amazon? Can you where should we be picking up our crystals?
I have not, I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever purchased one off of Amazon. I'm unusual because I got to live in Sedona and we got to be out west. So we had, just the beauty of being able to go to the Tucson Gem Show. And I pick them up when I travel and when something calls to me from a crystal shop. So I always suggest, if possible, do it in person. I know that's not always possible. I would go online and maybe I know Crystal Vaults, that's where I got certified from. Crystal Vaults is very reputable and has beautiful crystals of all price ranges. I mean, you can get one for $10. It doesn't have to break the bank. Just like I'm a big proponent of always having fresh flowers in your home. You don't need to have a $100 bouquet delivered every week. You can go to the grocery store and get the 3 for $12 and just get $3. So it's the intention behind it. So I would just try and find some reputable sites. But if you're on Amazon and something resonates and feels good to you when you're looking at it, try it. Then when you get it, clear it. Clean it and clear it first and then use it, because you don't want to be relying on the energy of wherever it came from. You want it to start fresh with your energy, and you want to charge it with your intentions and your energy.
How do you clear something, and how important, for example, when do you think I need to get rid of something, or can it be cleared?
It depends on, I guess, what it is. And that's why when I do consultations, we'll talk about stuff, because that's a very specific thing and it depends on everybody, but in general, I would say you could try and clear things if you want to. If you find that the energy is not shifting, and if you find that what you are wanting to call in isn't happening, then maybe it's time to take the next step and let it go. As a very general statement, because I do go into homes where, again, my training tells me this might be a red flag. But as I'm sitting down talking to the client, I'm asking the questions that would lead me to then say, perhaps you should let this go. And if the answers are not coming back the way I expect them, and if everything's great, let's just say they have something that's broken and they put it back together in the wealth corner of their home, which is like a big no-no in Feng Shui. Like, you don't want to have anything broken can equal broke. But it's meaningful to them because it was an antique and it belonged to great-great-great-grandmother, whatever the case may be. I will ask them about it, and I will say, how are finances? How are things going? Oh, awesome. No money problems whatsoever. Okay, that isn't causing a problem for you. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yes, that makes sense.
You know what I mean? There's enough other good chi happening in your home that having something that's meaningful to you, but maybe to me, with my trained eye, you shouldn't have, you can override me. You're the one living in the space.
Right.
Now, if I come in and I see that same thing and your answer is, can't make ends meet, can't do, there are financial issues, then maybe it's time to have the conversation of letting that item go. I don't care how meaningful it is to you. Or let's move it to a different area of your home. Let's move it to your family and ancestor area. Let's get it out of the wealth area and move it to a different area and see if that in itself shifts the energy. So, quick story, but it's this illustration. I got a call from clients who were a little older than my usual demographic. They were like mid 70s. Normally, my demographic is a little younger than that. But I went, of course, they were lovely people. And he was on an oxygen tank, with the machine. And the wife was saying that she could no longer sleep in their bedroom, and they'd been married, 50 plus years. And she hated that they couldn't sleep together anymore because the oxygen tank kept her awake all night, his snoring, all the things that go along with being on oxygen. So then I asked him, how are you feeling? And he goes, I feel like I'm drowning. I feel like I'm always underwater. And I feel like I can't breathe. I said, can we go see where you're sleeping? And he walked me back to their bedroom. And sure enough, above the bed was a beautiful oil painting of a canal in Venice with a gondola. And I said, tell me about this. Oh, this is very expensive. Actually, if I'm thinking about it, let me think of their house real quick. No, they were not in Wealth Corner. But it was a very expensive piece. And he's like, it meant a lot to us. We had this beautiful trip to Venice. We loved it, blah, 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 blah. I said, how about if we just move it? Because show me, where can a person not breathe? Where does a person feel like they're drowning? Where do they feel like you're underwater? And that is what you were describing to me. You were literally sleeping underwater every night. And because you're not sleeping, you're sleeping more. So it's not just at night. Now it's naps during the day to try and catch up. So you are spending a solid 10, 11 hours underwater. And they were very hesitant because it was expensive and it meant a lot. And I'm like, let's just move it to another area of the home where water is considered auspicious, which would be the career area in BTB Feng Shui. And 2 weeks later, I came to check on him and he was off the oxygen tank. He was in the yard playing with his granddaughter. Not running around, but he was in the yard playing with his granddaughter, no longer needing oxygen. And the wife, and that's all we did. I did the full consultation. I gave him, information on all the different areas. I said, but I just want to do this. And then I want to check on you. I knew I had another consultation near them a few weeks later. So I said, I just would like to come back and see what's going on. And sure enough, he was off oxygen. I used that one because it was so drastic that it even caught me off guard. I'm not going to say that every circumstance is the same. Feng Shui is not transactional. You don't do this and the next day you get this. But this case, it was pretty dramatic. And it even taught me just how literal the things around us can affect us, right? I mean, that was pretty powerful, just moving that one thing. And they were so happy. So it really does matter where things are in your home. And again, there was nothing wrong with that piece. It was a beautiful piece. It was expensive. It was meaningful. It was from a trip they loved, but it was not in a place that was being beneficial to them. So each consultation is individual. Everything's different. What's going on in your home?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story.
No, it blew me away. It blew me away completely.
God.
I'm like, damn, I'm good.
Yeah. That's amazing.
But it was my training, it's all because of the training, I'm trained to see those things that others may not notice. So what I tell everyone is once you get your Feng Shui goggles on, even as a client, like they'll never come off, unfortunately, and people are scared to have me over to their house. They're like, oh my God. And I'm like, no, I try and turn them off if I'm coming to a party or something, and unless you ask me, I'm not going to say anything. But it is funny. I had some other people in New Orleans last year tell me how burnt out they were. And I was literally standing at their dining room table at a party. And the chandelier had 8 lights, 7 were burned out. But they weren't asking me questions and it wasn't a consultation. So I kept my mouth shut. But I'm like, this is why you're burnt.
My God. It's a weirdly literal.
Sometimes it's very literal.
Yeah.
I listen very carefully to the words that my clients use.
Yeah.
I'm overwhelmed. I'm stuck. I'm burnt out. Money comes in as fast as it goes out. All of those things are like clues to help me know where to go look in your home to see what's going on in the area. And that's actually a great segue. Do you want me to describe what the Bagua map is?
That was my next question.
Yeah, because I know I've referenced it a couple
Yeah.
of times, and so people understand what I'm talking about. So there are different schools of Feng Shui, and what I would recommend to anyone who this is piquing their interest and they feel that maybe they want to schedule a consultation, whether it's with me or someone else, A, be certified, and B, find some people on Instagram or whatever social media you use that resonate with you, and then find out what type of Feng Shui they practice. And then have a consultant who follows that Feng Shui be the one that you work with. Because I get so many DMs of people so confused, and they're like, I hired this one and they said this, and I hired this one, they said this. And I'm like, you are getting confused, because even though all roads lead to the intention of wanting to create a better environment, there are different ways to get there. And traditional Chinese was created 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. Then compass school, you have practitioners who talk about directions and compasses. And then you have practitioners, and there's other ones, these are just some, who talk about the Bagua map, and that's what I do. So the Bagua map is a more westernized approach, because most of the clients, even though I do deal with people all over the world, have more Western style homes, meaning I don't find many swimming pools in the front yard. They're usually in the backyard, indoor plumbing, all those things. So it's a more westernized approach to a home that I deal with. And this is what I was taught, and this is what resonates with me. So we have the Bagua map is a tool. And if any of your listeners want their own, you can download it for free on my website. I'm sure you'll put the link
We'll
to
link
in
to
the
it.
notes.
Yeah.
And people can just download it and have it for free themselves to work with. It is a map that it's like a tic-tac-toe grid, I think is the best way to describe. It's divided into 9 different areas, which are the 9 most beneficial and most important areas of your life. So if we start with like your front door, normally the front door is going to be aligned with the career area, which would be the bottom center grid of the map. And sometimes you'll have the door to, to the left or to the right, but about 90% of homes have it somewhere in the middle here. So you would walk into your career area. Then if I'm going, I have to look at this backwards. I really should get one made like backwards and upside down for me someday, but I don't. If you're going to the right, the bottom right would be helpful people and travel. And I always say this to people. People come to me about wealth, and wealth is up here. And so I'm like, but you need helpful people and you need clients to create wealth. Like wealth just doesn't come out of the blue. You need those people. So it all works together. Then we have above helpful people and travel, we have children and creativity. And that can mean actual children, but that can also mean projects. I actually had my creativity area blocked. Unbeknownst to me, I had a window blocked. And when I opened that up is when everything started to flow for the book. Funny enough, just in my own house. Love and relationships is above children and creativity. And that is intimate relationships, but it's also all relationships in your life. Then next to that, center top, we have fame and reputation. People always are like, I don't want to be famous. I'm like, no, it's about how you are seen externally, especially in business. So if you are trying to create wealth and opportunities, you want to be seen in a positive light. So you want a very solid fame and reputation area. Then next to that, we have wealth and prosperity. Below that, family and foundations. So that's what I was saying, if that broken piece, if it had been an issue up here, we could try to move it to family and ancestors, because this is where you honor your past ancestors. So this is a great place for antiques and photos of family and people who have come before you. Below that, skills and knowledge. And then in the center of the entire map there, your center tic-tac-toe area is going to be your health, because it touches everything else. You can have all the money in the world, all the fame in the world, all the love in the world, but if you do not have good health, then what does it all matter, right? So then people ask me, okay, so then if I cannot handle, like where I was when I had my consultation, where do I start? I would say normally it depends on what you tell me is happening with you. Mine was going to be all about rest and recovery from a massive surgery and the inability to work to drive, to cook, to do anything else. So I was going to be spending a lot of time in our bedroom. So that is where I chose to start. And even though our bedroom in that house landed in helpful people and travel, I used the majority of her tips were for love and relationships because I needed it to be a nurturing and loving space for me to recover in, right? If your issues are mainly about wealth and money, sure, let's go see what's going on in the wealth and prosperity area, but let's also see what's happening in helpful people and travels. If you're telling me you're stuck in your career, great, let's go look at the career area, but then also what's happening in fame and reputation, because what is happening as to how you are showing up and how you are being seen that may lead you to feeling stuck in your career. So it's all very intertwined. You know, family with, of course, children. I do have people who have come to me who are having a hard time conceiving. So let's see what's happening in children and creativity. Let's see if something, you know, stuck, is something blocked. But let's go look at your family. How are family relationships? What can we do to soften those edges? So everything is very intertwined with the other. And this does not go by walls. You know, you can have one room. If you have a giant room, if you have a huge open floor plan on your main floor, then part of the consultation is like, I take your Bagua map or you'll send me a blueprint or draw it out, sketch it out, whatever you've got, and I'll overlay the Bagua. And so we can divide it and have a conversation and split it up that way. If I'm not doing it, you know, in person where I'm physically walking around. Because even though I do have clients, I just did a full penthouse in Aspen. So I got to travel to Aspen for about a year and a half over and over, which I love that place. You know, I'm doing one in Hawaii on the 9th. I've done 2 projects in Hawaii, both virtual. One was like full condo. And then this one is consultation. And she said it'll probably lead to my doing the design for it, but everything starts with the consultation, right? So I don't need to be there. And she sent me her floor plan. So I have her floor plan right there. I'll overlay the Bagua. You know, we'll look at it and based on her energetic intake form that tells me what she's looking to change in her life, then we focus on those areas. So that's fascinating, isn't it?
It is. And so it sounds like you're working on, for the most part, pretty big spaces. And so what about like for someone like me? I have 2 rooms in my house that I don't use.
That's
And
fine.
yeah, how does that affect the feng shui of the house? Do we just close the door? Do
No,
we
the opposite. The exact opposite.
Oh, okay.
So the beauty of the Bagua map is it can be macro or it can be micro. You can use the Bagua map on your mattress and divide your mattress into 9 squares and actually be manifesting while you sleep. You can use it for your nightstand. You can use it for your desk. For all of those, you know, you're seeing my office. I have an office at home, a dedicated workspace at home. And so does my husband. He's upstairs and I'm downstairs. So we had to split it because otherwise you can hear us on the phone all day. But you can use this in a macro space, you can use it in a micro space. So if your house does not look, you know, like a square, which like our house in Sedona was built on the views. It was all about the views. So it was anything but a square. You can use this room by room. So you would use the main door to that room as your career area, and you would lay the Bagua map out that way. I'd be very curious to see an overlay of your entire space and see where those 2 spaces that you don't use are, because they're not getting fresh energy if you're not using them. And is that going to have any relation to what you are telling me is going on in your life that perhaps you want to shift? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. It's funny. So they're guest rooms, and I really only have guests like a couple of times a year, right? And so they were just used. My niece and my sister-in-law were there. And when they left, I was, you know, like switching out the sheets and everything this weekend. And I thought I had something where I have a sewing machine. And usually when I need it, I just like take it out from where it is and then I'll like do whatever. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to move the sewing machine up to one of these rooms.
And I think that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, and it felt really good. And so now I have the door open a little bit, and when I walk out of my room, I see the little sewing machine, and I have like a couple of other like little craft projects in there. I hate the idea of unused rooms. Like I hate
100%.
Yeah, I just
And your
for
house
some
doesn't
reason,
like unused rooms either. Energetically, you
Interesting.
don't want it. It's funny. During my consultation, our dining room, we hardly ever used it. My parents had passed at that point in time, and I had inherited very nice things, very expensive things, but they weren't me from them.
Yeah.
And the words my consultant actually used when she walked in there, she goes, "It feels dead in here. This does not feel like you. And it feels dead. The energy feels dead." And I'm like, that's interesting because all this shit doesn't belong to me. It belonged to my parents. I felt obligated to keep it. It was expensive. I felt obligation. And she said, "I am releasing you from that obligation." And then she asked the same question of our guest room because we had 2 guest rooms in our old house as well because our son had left. And she said, "You can keep one, but I would turn the other one into a room that you use more often." And that was the birth of my meditation room. So I loved having that. And I went in there every single day and I just spent time in there. And if my husband wanted to watch a football game or something that I wasn't interested in, we put a TV in there too, so then I could watch something different. A quick suggestion so that if you don't have the time or are not inclined to or don't have the finances to completely, change a room 100%, add a live plant. That makes you have to go in there and take care of it at least once a week.
That's a great idea. I have a dining room that and people have pointed it out. It has the most expensive furniture in the house. It has
Mhm.
the only nice piece like of artwork, just like beautiful, like one of a kind, like live edge wood table. I maybe use it for dining like once a year. And
Right.
so I think maybe a small way, because the furniture is so nice, I don't want to like get rid of it, would be maybe I should set up some plants in there.
If you put live plants in a space, it does force you to go in and take care of them. So now we have a guest room in this house, and I had a meditation room, and they're installing sconces. I'm so glad that we're downstairs because I can't hear it upstairs, but they're putting in sconces. We are, as we talked about off air, going to be grandparents in January.
Yeah.
So I needed to now create a space where the kids could come with the baby, but I'm not creating a nursery because the baby's not going to be here
Yeah.
all the time. They live in DC. So I wanted to create a space where I could put in a pack and play or something for the baby, but also create another space that could be used if they need, if one of them's with the baby and the other one wants to sleep or needs to sleep or they need to work. So I gave them all our meditation room furniture. They asked, and I'm like, take it. So I let go of something that was not going to be working for us anymore because it just didn't function the way that I was going to need it to function moving forward.
Yeah.
And I got a sleeper sofa. So that's something you could maybe do in one of the rooms. If you've got beds in both rooms and you barely ever use them, keep one as a designated guest room, put in fresh flowers or a fresh plant that you've got to go in and, check on at least every few days to a week. And then do something different. Turn it into a craft room and add a day bed or add a sleeper sofa or add something that can function if you need it to as a secondary sleep space. But for 90% of the time, maybe even 95% of the time, it functions more as a space that invites you in and that you want to go be in and
Yeah.
that you want to work in.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing. And so now, and I've done it with really fun, moody wallpaper, and they're putting in sconces, but I'm also creating a space where if my son needs to take conference calls while he's here, he can close the door, have a table to work at. I can take
Yeah.
a podcast from there. I can teach from there. So it's like almost like a secondary workspace, but it functions as a sleep space and there's room for pack and play. So,
Ha.
make the rooms work for you because dead space is dead energy. And it would be really interesting to find out where in the Bagua map those rooms fall for you and how the energy of your home feels right now that you just had people using that space
Ha.
toward versus how it feels normally when it's not being used.
That is so interesting. And so I know I've kept you a really long time, but I do
No,
have a question. So when I was growing up in Toronto, we had a lot of people from Hong Kong immigrating into our area. And I just remember there was this issue about like where the stairs were, and like the stairs were like they would open the doors and the stairs were right there. And they said, "Oh,
Mm.
that means like money flows out," kind of thing. And so when we talk about feng shui, I think that a lot of people, their initial thought is just like layout or something like that, like stairs in front of a door. But how do other things, like you just mentioned your sconces, so how do like color and lighting and texture and not just layout affect Feng Shui?
Everything
Or
affects,
yeah.
absolutely everything affects your environment. That's the bottom line. Everything affects it. And it goes back to, you know, how is it affecting you? Is it a problem or is it not? Is it beneficial or is it not? So it all depends on everything else that I'm seeing in the space and what you are telling me is going on in your life. I know that's not the answer you want to hear, but
Mhm.
it's the truth, you know? Because going back to the stories that I mentioned earlier, for some people, it can be affecting them. You know, I had somebody that had a whole bunch of water. They had a big hot tub in their wealth corner. Ideally, that's a wood element. Again, along with the Bagua, there's a color that works for each area. There's an element and there's a shape. So when I'm designing, I take all of that into account and I try and have what I call, the way I design is my 5 elements in balance. So you want some of the all 5 elements. So in Feng Shui, the 5 elements are going to be water, earth, wood, fire, and metal. So lamps, lights, sconces are fire, but it's the sconces are actually, my office, I'll use me as an example here. My office is in the helpful people and travel area of our home, which is great, right? Because I am working on calling in helpful people, and my definition of wealth, and again, everyone's is different. And that's why I'm always like, what does wealth mean to you? Because that is the most important part. It
Yeah.
might not be what it means to me, is world travel, fabulous travel, bucket list items. We went to Egypt last year, rode the camels, spent Christmas in Costa Rica, just went to Mount Shasta, leaving for Turkey next month. Like, that is what wealth means to me. And that is what I want to use my extra money for. You know, so I have helpful people in travel. So helpful people in travel, the color for this area is gray. The element is metal and the shape is round. So my office does happen to be a very light French gray just because it worked without, with the rest of the house colors that I have in my house. I do not tell people to paint their house like a circus tent. I have somebody, that'll reach out and go, I'm going to paint my bathroom purple because it's in the wealth corner. And please don't do that
Yeah.
unless you've got purple running through your house. Like, it has to be a cohesive palette. This happened to work. In the room that I'm doing upstairs, which is the room we were just talking about with the sofa bed, there isn't an ounce of gray because it just didn't work with what I wanted to do in there.
Mhm.
However, I am being very careful to call in the metal element. My sconces are round. Well, the shape of the metal and they're metal.
Yeah.
So I'm intentionally picking sconces that are metal and they are round to call in the metal element into that room. But because they are light, they are also a fire element. So when I'm designing to not create clutter, I want to look at items that do triple, quadruple duty. I don't want just, yeah. So you have to, let me see, I can grab this real quick. A candle, for example. I just have a candle sitting on my desk. A candle clearly is a fire, right? Because it burns,
Yeah.
but it's also round, so it's metal, and it has a wood top. So I'm calling in the wood element as well. So this little lovely is doing triple duty for me, to where I'm not cluttering up my entire
Yeah.
desk with, here's a fire element, here's an earth element, this
Yeah.
element, here's a that element. Like, that's 3 in 1. So when I'm designing for people, when we pass the consultation and if they're hiring me to then do the design, I'm super intentional about that. What does this wallpaper represent? What does the paint color represent? What does the floor represent? Like, we want everything to have meaning, and we want to create a feeling of balance in every room. And that's what makes you come into a room and go, ha.
Oh my God.
When I get home at the end of a super stressful day or dealing with multiple consultations and I close the door to my office and I go out to the rest of our home, like, it's a sanctuary. So my
Yeah.
goal is always to give you that sanctuary, to leave you feeling like, oh, it feels so good in here. I can rest. I can relax. My body isn't on high alert in my
Mm.
home. My body is restful, which helps us along whatever journey we're on, right? Whatever it is, recovering from a surgery, sobriety, health, healing, death, we're dealing with that in our family right now too. You want a space that helps you heal from whatever it is that you're looking to do.
Yeah. On that note about like life and death type things, so having living things like plants seems to be important. What if someone is listening and they're like, I cannot keep a plant alive? Can I have a fake plant? Is that enough?
So
What
I
is
will say, depends on your intention. If you are using it as a feng shui cure or enhancement, I would say no, because it is not live energy. If you're using it as decor and you really, truly just cannot keep anything alive, which I have yet to find the person who really, truly can't,
Yeah.
then I would prefer at least silk over plastic.
Oh,
I'm not a big fan of fake plants,
yeah.
but if you have to, and you want something green and you want to set the intention that you're bringing it into a space to help, you can try it. But plants have come such a long way. The sansevieria, the mother-in-law tongues, the ZZ plants. There's so many plants that don't require a lot of love and attention to still survive and thrive. And I would just say, make it intentional to try and keep one alive.
Okay, so what else do you have going on as we wrap up? Is there anything you're dreaming about doing? Any projects you're working on that we should know about?
Right now, I am so incredibly busy with consultations because I love doing those. And that's what I enjoy the most, is just helping people, transform their lives and help them move forward from whatever they're wanting to move forward from and move into. I do that all the time. And then a lot of them hire me to then move on and do the design. So that's always fun. That's always my favorite thing to do. Other than that, we are going to Turkey, and I'm so excited about that. I've already measured several areas for rugs, and I can't wait to see that and to go experience that. And we've got a little grandchild coming, and I do think I'm starting to play with the idea of having some online courses. So probably in 2026, I'll have some online courses where people can, just download them and at their speed take them from me. But that's where I am right now.
I love that. I learned so much. I know the things I'm going to do this week are I'm going to work on the rooms I don't use. I'm going to bring something alive into my dining room.
Yes. Oh, I feel that.
I'm excited. So those are the things I'm going to do this week. And then I'll regroup and see how it feels. And thank you so much.
One final suggestion, since you are going to be implementing some of the things we discussed. Grab a journal. I learned this from my teacher. Grab a journal.
Yeah.
And just keep track. Write down what you did and the day you did it and why you did it. And then I think it's really fun. I'm a Virgo. So I love my lists. I love all that stuff. But I also love seeing how long it takes for things to happen and what happened.
Okay.
Or maybe not will happen. But, keep track of it. And just see if you notice a change and what you notice. And I think it's a lot of fun to keep track of. And I've been doing that since I first started implementing Feng Shui. It also helps you see if that didn't really do much to the energy, what else can I do maybe to shift it a little bit more? You implement things in your bedroom, write it down, see if your sleep improves. I just think it's fun to keep track of that. It helps you feel like what you're doing is very intentional.
Yeah. In my bedroom, I spent a lot of effort unspousing it when I got divorced. And I love it. Love it, love it, love it. It's like texture and lighting. And so I think I'm going to add a rose quartz.
There you go.
Yeah. That's what I think I'm going to do. But this was amazing, Alejandra. We'll include your information in the show notes, but thank you so much.
You're so welcome. It was fun.
Yeah. And thank you all for listening to Sisters in Sobriety, and we will see you next week. This was Sisters in Sobriety.
Thank you for listening and being with us today.
If you want to learn more about sobriety and meet your community, find us at sistersinsobriety.substack.com.
Are you a sister in sobriety? Then reach out on social media. We'd love to hear from you.
If you're feeling generous, leave us 5 stars and a review and follow us wherever you listen.
You'll never miss an episode. Until next time.